Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We're glad to actually talk to you this evening. We're so glad you accepted our request to interview you. And this interview could actually provide so many insights for us because right now we're forming our philosophies and going at a later stage in our architecture career. So this would prove to be a very insightful experience for us. So we'd like to start with the first question. Could you share what initially inspired your journey in the field of architecture? And additionally, how did you navigate the transition from being a student to a professional in the field?
Truth answer. Do you want the truth answer?
Yes, sir.
Everyone asks students, no? Why did you become an architect? Why did you choose architect? The truth answer is I slept in my chemistry exam. Frankly, I think, but I was really fortunate to join architecture. I think somewhere I really see that this is a career I chose or it chose, whatever, but I found my calling in this career. Again, not for the faculty, but for the students, I'll tell you, fortunately I didn't have faculties. We were in the first batch. So we were the free birds. And we were 11 students in our class in some 15 other directions. So we only didn't know what direction we were taking. But for me, I was quite involved with learning from students, from my classmates and my juniors on how to really work on designs. And I started working with a lot of seniors from other colleges. So by the time I did my thesis, I had already worked around 9 thesis projects. And by the time I was in my fourth year, before my thesis, when I was doing my fourth year, I was managing somebody else's thesis project. And I was telling him what to draw in which sheet. And it was fun. It was basically fun. And when I did my thesis project, we had some 35, 36 people working on my thesis project. Students from various colleges from across Bangalore. And education then was like that. You learn from peers, you learn from sharing, you learn from dialoguing, discussing. For my thesis, I literally had an office for my thesis. Right? We had a space which we used, and faculties used to come from various colleges, and students used to be there. We used to discuss issues. No formal systems of education, but through just sharing and learning, that's how it happened. And then when I was working in the fourth year, when I was working on that project, I walked into one room, one new building which was just constructed, off-road, inside roads. Walked in, and suddenly the idea of architecture for me changed. Because that building, you walk in and you have no notions of what we are taught as architecture. Everything was a new element for me. We were told 10 feet roofs. Roofs were 7 feet tall, or some places 7 feet, some places some 14 feet, some places something else. Then we had materials, like if somebody said you should not have vertical joints in a brick, that whole building was built with vertical joints. So every notion of whatever was taught to me was broken in that building. This architect, he should be a madman, no? Yeah. He's trying to do that. Then met that madman. I told him I love this house and I would like to intern with you. He said, come over from tomorrow. So next day I went to his office and he said, what are you good at? I said, I'm good at drawings, axonometrics, I'm good at making models and things like that. Then he took out a sheet of paper, like this one envelope, he just took out an envelope, drew some 5 lines on it, gave it to me and said, this is your 1 lakh square feet of built up area. And you need to do the model of this, physical model. So for the next 6 months, I was doing models using clay, and in that model I learned how to break my rules. Break the notions of space. And you all know who that madman is? There's only one madman in Bangalore. Architect, Chetan. So he mentored me. He mentored me to say that nothing is impossible. I think push yourself to the impossible path. So that took me on my journey, and that's where I think the transition from being a student, we were always a student with, like I told you, different directions. So as a student, we were not bound by the classroom because of less faculty, and my mentor in college, Satish Rao, was also another amazing person who pushed me and said, take the unbeaten path, explore things. He had some weird ideas, and I've told him all his sketchbooks are my property. So I've told him to bequeath it in his will. All the sketchbooks belong to Chetan. Yeah, so he told me last time, he said, some 200 books are waiting for you. So some weird ideas like take one 8 feet by 4 feet sheet, plywood sheet, 2 sheets, and design a 6-seater dining table out of those 2 sheets. And he used to do it. He used to show us how to do it and things like that. So he gave me a very interesting, different perspective. And working with Jaisim took me another journey. So Jaisim was a very strong objectivist, somebody who believed in the power of the mind. So we had a lot of philosophical conversations with him. And later I was staying with a lot of leftists who was very opposite of what Jaisim was teaching me. My mentors from that school. So they were talking to me about people, about society, about challenges and things like that. So you had two different narratives, but somewhere I could see that the common language between life and architecture was being formed somewhere. So I think that was a very interesting formative years during, might be I should be around 22, 23 by that time. Very formative years, the thinking. And so what is your thesis topic?
We still haven't decided, so it's going to pop up.
But generally what would be the thesis topics?
Generally it would be a live project for sure.
Right.
So it will vary from a lot of ecosystem, like the Eden project types, to planetariums, museums and cultural centers.
What's my thesis topic? Remember, 30 students plus were working. What do you think was my thesis topic?
Was it really like a planetarium?
It was what is a cube.
Cube?
My thesis topic was what is a cube. And that whole narrative of understanding what geometry means, what symbolisms means, what a lot of things was being dialogued on that. So that was, and finally ended up as a built form, it was finally something else. But as an idea, you go into that inquiry of what a cube is. Right? So these were thoughts which happened to me because of my training with Jaisim and also working with the other mentors I was telling you about, Sridhar and people like them. Then I think when we started practice, it was very clear. We break rules. And it took me 2 years to get my first project. Started breaking some things. Then the client gets scared. And I've given the project to somebody fresh. And he's doing everything which I've not seen. Right? And then it so happens that there's a borewell blast next to the building. And suddenly he's sitting inside the room, and between the walls where the mortar is supposed to be, he can see the neighboring property. So he went into that journey. So he suddenly gets scared. Comes back. You remember Mohan Rao? Then we did a second house. But that's the confidence they have as a profession in terms of doing what you want, what you felt was right, and what you can explore as an architect. It has its own challenges, but yeah, it was fun.
So in architecture, usually everyone has these moments and they wish that someone had told them a certain thing earlier. And if you had those moments, what would it be, according to your experience in architecture school?
how to run a practice like a business is missing in all schools. And it took me 25 years to find a mentor to tell me that this is how you run an office. And that person is easily 15 or 20 years younger to me. And he just said, you're making a mess of your own practice. You're not able to scale up, you're not able to build. You're only being able to build out of passion. But yeah, so I think that's something. How do you look at your practice with core values? You don't remove your core values, but how do you push these core values to even making it a business model? Very important. Hope answered.
Yes.
So speaking about projects and starting, you mentioned about your first project. So what surprised you the most about actually practicing architecture when you first entered with that first project, and how you tackled it, because you were just a fresher then? So what excited you most about it?
I think because of working with Jaisim, you already are tuned to questioning everything. So you first question what your contractors are trying to tell you. And they're not willing to listen to you because you're a newbie. And that was the reason why we were not getting projects. So finally found a contractor who was building it for the first time. And I was building for the first time. So I told him to do it, he did. Right? He didn't know what he was doing. So he built. But yeah, we also realized a lot of challenges. I mean, you do that as you grow, you realize a lot of things. Experiences teaches you. But this is one fun element. How do you convince a contractor to build? So today we are building across the state. We're building outside the state. So how do you convince a contractor to do something which is not the norm? Say for example, I'm doing a roof done out of only bricks, and I tell them don't put cement between the bricks, but it should be a roof and it should stand. Who will jump? And you build it and then you force that fellow to decenter it. He does not want to decenter. Then the client comes and says, no, the cost is mine, go ahead and decenter. So everybody stands outside the vault and then removes it. And they say, wow, it looks so beautiful. And then the next time I give him a challenge which is 4 times tougher than that, and he's happily doing it. Right? So I think that's one challenge which faced initially. I think we've been now able to address it.
So when you're starting a new project, so what's your design process like? What are the first few steps you taken into consideration? So would you prefer like maybe sketching or drawing a section or like modeling? And what's your design process like when you get a project?
There are two ways I would answer this here. Whatever you talked about in terms of sketching, modeling, doodling, whatever, are skills. Okay? But let me talk to you about any project comes with a dream, right? Which is a client's dream. So you address that dream, you kind of assimilate that dream and trying to see how can I enhance the dream to another level, right? And then push it to reality. That's the way you start off a design process. The sketches could happen, many a time I'm talking to the client and I'm having a piece of paper and I'm just even subconsciously drawing things, and it would be the space you design. Right? It would happen many a time. The second thing is an ongoing process of what your office is trying to achieve. It could be in the play of material, it could be in the play of spaces, it could be in the play of light and things like that. So that is something you continuously take it from project to project to project to project. Right? You've done something in one project. Now how do you push that language to another level? because I always say that creativity is about understanding my own boundaries and then consciously stepping out so the boundary becomes larger. Next project you step out further. So you push that to make it bigger, until sometime it fails. You realize, okay, that's not the part to take. Then you take another part. So that's the fun part. That's how you take this forward. So that's the process, thinking process. Of course, the tools could be anything. Some people, today I don't, this is only for browsing and, right? So they come out with various ways of drawings. Some of them do models, some of them do plans, some of them do thermocol stuff. You break them. It comes to me and it's supposed to be broken.
So we're always curious about the reality of design work, but how do you handle it when your creative vision clashes with practical constraints or client requests?
Sometimes when you see that the client's requests are not sensible, then it's better not to do the project. It's not sensible. But you never let go of this client's dreams. You might not be the architect to support the dreams of the client. So let go of the project so that he finds another architect who works with that client, right? But when somebody comes to us and says that this is a dream, we always look at how to enhance that dream, right? So that's the whole idea. If I'm rightly answering your question of how do you look at challenges which come to me. So it's not a challenge, it's a design brief. Including sometimes Vastu becomes a design brief. Right? Today it's, fortunately, unfortunately, it's part of the design brief for most of the people. When it comes to non-practicality of construction, I love them. We try to make it. We love me and says, look, this project is very short-lived. We have a lease for 10 years. So we want a building which is to be built for 10 years. And after 10 years, it will be demolished. And so I asked him, it is a large school here. It's almost 15,000 square feet of built-up area. So I told him, what happens if you shift the school? So the client said, can you shift it? I said, I hope so. And that's how the design process started off. And when we were working with the structural engineer, he gave us steel structures and said, this is bolted, we can remove it and move the thing. Then I questioned him, again, column, beam, everything was done. Questioned him, the tree never transfers load on the 90 degrees. Why is my building transferring load on the 90 degrees? So can you turn the columns? Can you incline the columns? What happens when you put it into stand? So he did a few exercises and he came back with a form of an X. And so the ground floor columns were going inside and the first floor columns were going outside. And then we realized why that happened is when you match the CG, center of gravity, you kind of tie those beams properly up. And when he put it into STAD, which is a software for structural analysis, we realized we are saving 30% of steel. Right? And then the third level is, so sir, we'll save all the steel. Whenever we are shifting, we'll take the steel out, we'll sell it, we'll make money there. So what about the roof slabs? No, that needs to be demolished. So can you find out how to build a roof slab which can be moved? So we designed a roof slab which was 30 feet long, 22 feet wide, 1.5 inch thick with ribs of 8 inches, which came in a crane, kept in place. Tomorrow when they want to shift, they'll move that off. So non-practicability of a construction thing is fun. When somebody says it can't be built, we try and see how to build it.
So in this case, like foundations, like the columns and the foundation, how was it achieved?
Yeah, pin foundations. They're all pin foundations. So they were all anchored to it. So the whole building could be shifted. Yeah, there were few parts of it we can't be shifted. Like they say, the flooring, the concrete PCC below, the footing there, they are a loss. But it's good that we are not sending 100% into a landfill, no?
Yeah, definitely.
We're not sending everything into a landfill. Unfortunately, whatever we design goes into a landfill. Yes.
So, can you walk us through any of your projects? It can be a recent one or anything you're
Yes,
or you're found.
Another one.
Another project maybe. And
Which you're very
what made it special and the challenges you faced?
We're doing one project in Ilkal. You've heard of Ilkal? It's in North Karnataka. It's a very hot and dry climate. Temperatures go up to 45 degrees, 46 degrees. And the contractor was dealing with granite and marble. So I went to his factory and he had two mountains of concrete, granite waste. So I asked him, can we build with this? And they're all waste. So we end up building all the walls with that stone blocks. And then if you look at the blocks which go into place, they're huge rock cut pieces, and they slice it like a bread. And then they chop it at the edge. So you have a beautiful 90-degree seater which is left as waste. They take it to the edge. So I said, next 4 pieces you're going to cut, leave a little bit more there. So we got 4 such things and made that 4 corners of the building, put glass and loaded the building on top of it. So you kind of play around with that. And we looked at various nuances of how to handle lighting when cooling the building, wind catchers and things like that. So it naturally cooled down the building by almost 15 degrees. We had somebody from I think Europe college which came, put up thermometers all over the house for 20 days, took measurements every 15 minutes, and they gave me a statistic that these parts of the rooms are cooler by 15 degrees, these parts of the house are cooler by around 12 degrees, 13 degrees. So anywhere between 12 to 15 degrees it was cooler on the inside than outside. And in Ilkal it's a huge thing, and you're not using a fan, you're not using a AC, nothing. Only by naturally cooling the building, naturally ventilating the building, you're able to do that using materials, using spaces to cool the building down. It was fun. Hope I answered that question.
So, sir, is there such a thing like, a typical day in an architect's life? Like, oh, it was such, like, in a work field, like many people are like, oh, it was just another typical day. Is there anything like that?
No.
So every day is a new journey, every day is a new challenge.
Yes. Yes, there is. It can't be a typical. Of course, because of the way you work, it might become typical. But the way you think, it won't be typical.
So constantly dynamic job.
Yes. For the mind. For the high hand, it might be typical. No? You're doing drawings, you're going to site, visiting sites. There you have. But for the mind, you're keeping it agile always.
So how do you manage different projects simultaneously? Like you have many projects ongoing at the same time, and how do you go for like the strategy of taking everything together?
Whatever I was talking to you right now, till now, was all based on the creative side. Right? So an architect also has to be a manager. And how you manage systems, processes, structure is very critical. That is where I told you I was mentored by a boy who was much younger by me, who taught me how to do a business. And he is continuously helping us out do business in a very formal way. Since we work with this idea of sustainability or being impactful to the planet, we were always saying, I would like to work with only passion and do 10 projects a year. He said, no, you have to impact thousands of people's life every year. So he was asking me, how can I build 1,000 buildings in a year? Right? It's a shocking thought process. But just imagine that if you are doing an impact to the planet at that level, you're making a impact which is measurable. So now we are trying to really see how can you do many number of projects at a given point of time. So you build the process, how to work on it, you build the structure, who is going to do what is going to be done, who is going to do it, and how do you do it, and how fast can you deliver. All of that are the logical mind of an architect. So you build that whole system up. In fact, just before you came, I was building a structure of an assignment which was given to me of who are going to be the team members of my office 5 years down the line. So I was just writing them down in terms of saying, these are the number of people, this is the 150, 200 people team I need to have, and these are the different people, activities of those team members, and this is what their roles are. So you build on that, and you manage that. So that's the logical mind of an architect.
So what is like the most unexpected part that happened after becoming like an architect and practicing on your own that you never realized when you were a student?
Everything, no.
So any one impact?
Did all of you finish your internship?
No, sir.
You'll find out. But I always say, the students always come back and say they've learned so much in an office that they found their time in college wasteful. But I completely disagree with them, because without the skill sets the college has taught you, without the mindset the college has taught you, you would not be able to deliver what we want to deliver in an office. Right? So, but it will shock you when you come out into the practice. You say, did I really learn anything in college? But it's a fact, you've learned a lot in college. And even the idea of, I tell, because I work with students from, especially in the first 2 years, whenever I'm teaching, we work on breaking their mindsets. And you would also have done, no? Like using dots and lines to draw something which is insane. So why were you doing this? It's all about breaking your mindset. Right? So what is 2 plus 2? 4. Is it 4 or is 22?
You never know.
No.
Trying to make us think in a different perspective. Yeah.
Right? So all of that happens, and for you to go through that journey is very critical as a student. You can't negate what your student journey is. And for me, I was lucky. I was telling you that both my faculty who are part of the journey, but and my mentors and my the students, seniors I worked with, they all mentored me. They were all peer learners. I keep telling all the students, work for your seniors, work for your juniors, learn from them. It's not about, you're not going to build something during college. So break every notion. Nobody wants to copy you. It's not something you copy. But you're learning every time you see somebody else's design.
So what was the reason you started your own firm? How did you scale it up to this level and this recognition you have now? How did you start with it?
I started blindly, trust me. Big mistake. I would always tell all students, don't start after your college. One big mistake I did, and it took me years of learning before I could really put it into practice. So if you want to scale up much faster, you learn, because we assume that only operations or working on design is the only skill set you need to have. But it's not the only skill set. You need to know what is accounts. You need to know how to send a letter. You need to know what is a contract. You need to know that if a client puts a challenge against you, how do you address it? And you need to know where to keep your papers. Look, I still don't know where to keep my papers. Everything is lying all over. Right? So now I've asked my team to get an ISO certification. So we said, let's get disciplined. So learn on how to run an office for some years. And in the process, get your philosophies right. And then join our office. Unfortunately, I started practice very fast. And it took me 2 years to get a project. Until then, I was doing a little bit of work with Jason in another office, doing some things. Or I was teaching in a college. And then slowly you started doing. And 30 years later, 25 years later, you want to set up our own research center in Hampi. You go there, a center for design in Hampi. You realize you don't have the money. And you have spent 25 years of your life practicing, and then you question what is the purpose, right? Then you bang, oh, I don't know how to do business. I know how to build good building, but I don't know how to collect fees. Right? So if I had learned them during my initial 3-4 years, I might have achieved it in the next 3-4 years. So some mishap like this made me question, I said. So a lot of people, when I came back and I said, no, this is how we're going to change the office. This is going to be a business number-driven office. They were all like, no, we didn't sign up for this. And I said, our core values will not change. Our core values of sustainability, of doing good for the client will not change. But the way we organize, the way we push things up, I started reading, started understanding, finding mentors, helping me. Who is a good mentor here? Somebody who's aged or somebody who's young?
With experience.
Okay.
Someone who understands what you're trying to learn about.
Okay.
I feel like that is very important in a mentor.
Okay.
Because the main point of it is the guidance, so you don't go estranged. So maybe someone who knows where you're going can help you
Find your
where to
way.
go.
I'll tell you age of one of my mentors. Guess.
Or if they were younger, 20 years.
21. He's teaching me AI. Who else? I can't ask somebody who's Jaisim to teach me AI. He will not. Right? I know that AI can help us look at the world at a much different pace. The world in which you guys will enter a practice, sorry to say, is not a safe place. You will not be designing architecture the way we design architecture. There will be a marked difference, and I shall be a competitor. Well, I'm being trained by youngsters.
Age is never a factor to learn.
So adding on to that, what was your investment structure in the beginning? How did you start on that? What was your thinking while you were starting the firm?
Fortunately, I didn't pledge my wife's jewels, but no investment. What is my investment?
In
Like-
terms of setting up the
Yeah,
firm, the
firm.
initial investment, maybe like getting your AutoCAD and all the
Oh,
software and a place to run the firm.
Unfortunately, then we didn't. Place was a house, was a building which we owned. We were lucky enough not to, spend on it. No rentals. So initially we were just me and a couple of people, friends. We were 3 partners who started off, and I think we were together for around 8 months or so. And then we decided to split. Initially not much, very frankly. As you grow, we were a very organically growing. We've been an organically growing firm. Even now, this is a very organically grown firm. This is also my house below. So this was a go down in the first floor. So I send them out and occupy this place. So I don't have to pay much rent. I just have to take care of the house, pay the taxes.
A beautiful place.
It is.
So can I ask one thing apart from the topic? You see Vichitram, right?
Yeah.
What is it a collaboration or is it a different office as such?
It's a different office, which is in a brand design. exhibition design and things like that. So we're working on collaborations too. So I wanted to make this a lot more design intensive space. So we want to do a lot more stuff together. We want to create something called Chamrajpet Habba, a design festival of Chamrajpet. How do you make some changes? How do you bring in a new language for the street? We're trying to talk. We're talking in the air right now. So let's see what we found.
So how did it feel to figure out that architecture actually seeps into more more ways than we imagine? Photography and books and so many other ways to express, not only because this is an art, language of art. How did it feel for you to understand that this seeps into more ways than we've already seen during our early years of education?
Look, I'll tell you, I mean, very brilliant. It's a brilliant question. I think an architect can become a much better architect if he is trained, she or he is trained in any of the art forms or has an inclination for one of the art forms. Some of you might have found your art forms in photography, some of you would have found it in music, some of you would have found it in dance. I don't know, I think that's what related me to architecture, because I was a dancer. Now I can't, but then I was a dancer. I used to perform Yakshagana for almost 10 years. I used to perform in a lot of places, even did a movie. And my mentors were strong leftists. They brought me into the world of cinema, and shown me the world of cinema. So we were sitting down with them and watching Japanese, Israeli, French, some brilliant films, and one of those cinemas really impacted me a lot. In fact, my earlier office, which was in KR Road, was a tribute to one of the filmmakers. So it really inspired me so much. So somewhere, yeah, all this influences the way you think. So in fact, when I got married quite early, so when it was a early marriage.
Right out of college.
Yeah, almost. 26 is right after college, right? A little bit.
Almost.
Early marriage. So my father, my grandmother asked, what kind of a girl do you want? So I had a very clear brief. What should be the brief?
Someone who understands that your own values, the value systems have to match your way of life has to
How would you define it?
To be compatible.
I don't know, I was never thinking that. What 24 years? We didn't have internet to be exposed to stuff.
Respect and
Those.
compatible.
The only ask I had was she should be a dancer. I don't know why. Now on hindsight, I think I find the reason why. And today she's a great inspiration. Because 7 years ago, after dancing Bharatanatyam and Kathak for a long time, out of the blue she got paralyzed. So head down, no movement. You take her to the doctor and say, these are last days. So 5% chance of her surviving. And then we talked about it. I didn't hide anything from her. I shared it with her. So the doctors are not giving you too much of a chance of survival, and you have a lot of things to do in life. And then what happened? 15 days later, she was back at home, but immobile still. The doctor said she'll take a year to walk. Her muscles have to heal. 3 months later, she sent them a video of her dancing. And then today now, 6 years later, she learned 2 Indian martial arts. She took the teacher's training program on martial arts. Now she's teaching students from across the globe martial arts.
So that's really so inspiring. Because as 20-year-olds, we feel so tired after a normal day at college. You don't challenge anything, we're hungry, we're sleepy. But in your stories like this, it really strengthens your foundation of your way of life, how you should live.
Very true, very true.
We feel like it's a dead end almost, like every
And you
small
know what she
incident.
teaches? Have you heard of Garadi Mane? Garadi Mane is your wrestling wells. And you've seen those people in that loin cloth and doing that wooden club. So she teaches wooden club. And you take that wooden club and do that movement 108 times. So she does 5-6 such movements in a day. So just imagine, I was telling the doctor, I met the doctor recently. This is what she told me.
The doctor probably asked her, how are you going to
The doctor is in love with her, so.
It's very inspiring.
It is. So it also helped me in my business. Earlier, whenever there was a blank wall, I used to build that blank wall. You always face challenges. That's what you call a blank wall. And you start building, make it bigger, until it becomes too difficult to climb and pass over. And then you get, that's what happens in depression. Right? There's a small activity and you make that activity so large that you're not able to cross over. But today, whenever you face a challenge, my first question when I face the challenge is this bigger than what we fought for? Right? It is not that I'm sure we'll be able to get through. And we get through it easier because you have not built a wall. Right? That's what I keep telling all of you. When I'm finding kids having a lot of challenges at the mindset. Don't be challenging there. So it's a passing phase. Just sometimes you need to take a step back to make the wall smaller, to make it non-existent. It's fine. Then jump. You'll be across the wall.
That's such a nice advice. So especially because when you're in, the ending stage of our education, it's all the chilling, we'll go home and watch a movie, times are over. Especially to hear this now, it's actually going to give us some strength.
Have a lot of fun. Don't take the profession at a very serious level. That's another big thing which I think everybody talks about career. It's not life. There's so much more.
So what are the architecture trends recently which excites you the most, like the new technology or maybe AI?
Okay, there are two things which I'm really working hard on, and I'm also building a lot of awareness to students about. One, I'm a trained educator. I train teachers also on this, which is biomimicry.
Yeah.
Heard of biomimicry?
Yeah.
Why do you want to learn from biomimicry? Why do you want to learn about biomimicry?
Like the solutions which it has to certain problems. Like in the desert, I don't know the name of the insect. No, it's another beetle. The way it takes the moisture in its shell, and the same way they've taken it into a building and made it to keep the moisture in and all that.
Because everything we have designed till now, we are sending it into a landfill. But nature never sends anything into a landfill.
Yeah.
So if you can learn that and integrate that, and if you really ask me, I was in another interview I was sharing, that I would be happy if I can design a building which can die before I die, before its usage. It ends. The time it ends, it needs to die. And I design. So for example, today you have cups made out of starch or pineapple. So it holds water for that couple of hours, and then it crumbles down. And so is it possible for us to design buildings like that? That it is alive for 30 years and 40 years, or whatever it is. And then it becomes part of another process. Right? That's where we even question this idea of mobile building. Can that not end its life so fast? Can I delay its life for another 4 or 5 generations of its usage? It's possible. So biomimicry is definitely one. The second one is, of course, I'm quite excited to learn and still explore. I'm telling my team that we should build a new group which is going to work on that, which is working on the metaverse, because the world in which you guys are going to come in, a mass proportion of your crowd and the next generation of yours is going to be concised into a room. Have you all seen the world book, the Matrix, movie Matrix? You should please watch that. The Matrix, it talks about that each human body is a battery, and what we are living is something which is out in the digital world. It's a very philosophical movie. It's a beautiful movie, told in a very sci-fi way, but quite philosophical in its content. So somewhere I think we would be datas. So how do you create spaces for those? It might not be good, but I'm not somebody who would say evolution is bad. Might be it's pushing us towards extinction. It's a path of nature. Because nature might realize that we are a blip. We are a wrong species to be born. He might throw us out. So it'll create its own way of looking at things. But your generation will be working in space, in digital world. What is the beauty of digital world? You can look at the negative and the positivity of that. What is the negativity of positivity of a digital world?
Make corrections.
Huh?
Make corrections without damaging.
So I feel in a digital world, like even if you just take the land in the real world, there's like the land, it's getting
Physical, it's there.
It's decreasing and going. But when you compare to a digital world, like if you want to build something or something, you can look into it. Like even if it's like a larger area of land, you can build your project and something like that.
I'll tell you what's the most exciting thing for me. Most exciting thing. There's no gravity. So everything you design as an architect today, you have to work with the laws of gravity. And if you remove that whole one grain of saying there's no gravity. So just imagine a building which can just explode whenever you're going to that room. And then coming out, it compresses. It becomes 1 byte. When you move in, it becomes 1 gigabyte. Right? Possible, no? Because there's no gravity. There's nothing which binds it. It can change. You move into that space once and you go back and you look at the space again. It's a different space. It has a different material. It has a different texture. It has a different geometry.
It would be like a world with no restrictions.
Yeah. And if you really look at what's happening in the metaverse right now, you are just building buildings in the world metaverse, like we're building buildings in the physical world. There's no fun.
And there's so much more you can do.
And today's tools, my God, what tools? Rhino, Grasshopper, just break the very notions of how you work. I don't know, of course there will be more. AI is coming out with some amazing tools. I don't know, very soon we should be just moving hands like this and forms are being created. I find that exciting, very friendly. A lot of people are scared about it, but I find that exciting, really exciting.
You can lead it. You can lead it to do something that you want to create. I feel like AI has no power of its own. We give it the power to do it. So I feel like it's more of an additional tool or a skill that an architect can acquire in these coming years than something you should be scared of. Compared to the IT sector especially, because their workload is decreasing. I think there's nothing to be scared.
Everywhere, yeah. Well, I like another quote. No? Somebody made this lovely quote. They said, let AI do all our dishes, clean our beds. I don't want it to get into art and architecture, and painting and sculpture and dance. Yeah, very interesting quote, but I think, except the fact that it has already entered the field of art, it has already entered today most of our clients are young guys, IT professionals who want to do something. So we send them a 3D model and say, look, this is how the building will look. And the next time he comes back to me with his computer and says, I gave that IA prompt to this, and this is what the 10 options you gave from your elevation. Wow. When you choose what you want, what's nearest your dream?
Yeah, just a couple more questions. Like in this topic of like how architecture would be in the future, what do you think would be most important skill set, either way of thinking or learning new skills? Which would you feel is the most important an architect should have?
An architect should have a great sense of observation and a great sense of questioning, being able to question. Don't take things at face value. Question everything, question everything, question everything. And that will create something very interesting. Any field, it could be you're designing in metaverse. I mean, until I question, there's no gravity. I mean, you put that equation and what happened to gravity? What will happen to structural systems? Right? Your arch is based on gravity. Your tension structures are based on gravity. Everything needs land to stay. No, I can have a building. You are talking about expanse of land. I'm talking about expanse of space. Right now it's about X and Y. You are talking about X and Y. I'm talking about X, Y, Z. It can be brilliant. No?
Sir, if given a chance, like in architecture school, what would you wanted to learn like before? Like you were telling like how to run a business or how to execute a project, something like that. What else would you have wanted to learn before, like in your education itself?
I think unfortunately the system or the scale at which we are working in terms of design problems is only based on scale. I think that needs to shift to the complexity of thought. I would say no. Don't you think designing a built farm in metaverse with no gravity is a wonderful thesis topic? Shouldn't that be a research topic and something you work on? Why should it be a live project? Why can't you design a house as a thesis project? Where the complexity is much higher. The complexity of thought should increase. Say for example in fourth year, generally you're doing a large span structure or something. So can you question biomimicry? Which organism can span like that? Can you realize that a spider can throw its web almost 250-300 meters away and catch birds using thin silk members? Can I learn from that and integrate that into my design? Shouldn't that be the line of thought? I think these are things which students should really explore. With my team, my last week's question was, are we an architectural firm or are we a drafting firm? Because everybody is doing drawings. We're still doing drawings. Everybody is doing 2 feet, 4 inches, 3 feet, 3.5 feet. How do I minimize that activity? It's something we are trying to explore. How do we not become somebody who is drawing, whether it's 2 feet or 2 feet 4 inches, to somebody working on thoughts? So immediately when you're doing that, you're only hiring people who have that mindset, think of the world in a much larger space, and you work on it.
Sir, like coming into the future, how do you think architecture will shape the cities, like future, even like spaces, like when you take urban design, how like an architect shapes like how the community evolves around in that area?
Look, architecture has a great role to play because I think we have too much of resources available for us to use. What is the biggest resource we have available for us to use?
Maybe, I think we're open to everything. There's lots of, like we have so many things at our hands that we deal with on a daily basis.
We have a lot of waste.
That's
Construction waste.
A lot of waste. And I think that would be the future. How do you really look at landfills becoming a part of your architecture and making it look beautiful? Look at what Vinu is doing. Amazing mind, amazing thought. You've heard of Vinu. Vinu Daniel, seriously? Vinu Daniel, please look at his works. Don't even, he's crazily beautiful. He's insane. He's brilliant. Just imagine you are given a project to design a memorial for Balmurali Krishna. Not Balmurali Krishna. Singer, no?
Yeah.
Stalwart. So you're designing, you're supposed to design a memorial for him. So what would you do as a project?
And something along the lines of rhythm and like notes, like you understand his symphony.
He starts looking at waste tires and builds a whole museum using tires and beautiful structures.
Sir, what's the best piece of advice like you would give us now, like to go forward in our lives?
Don't be bound by what you know. There's a world outside of what you don't know is so beautiful. For everyone. Every time I do this, you break. You explore what you don't know. So you don't be in the comfort zone.
Even get out of your comfort zone.
Kick your butt up. Get out.
You come to the new age where we developing offices with glass facades and all of that, and your firm is mainly focusing on sustainability and environment-friendly building, right? So how do we incorporate that into high-rise buildings? That is one question that we've always tried to answer. Right now, even with our bus terminal project, it's 14 floors high. How do we make this sustainable? How do we incorporate less of glass and more of what is native to our building in Bangalore? And how do we tackle that as an architect? How do we create awareness of it?
You're asking answers for a complete design project. Right?
Almost.
So you have the answer there, very frankly. When you say, how do we do this without using of glass? The answer is on how you do it. And it's different for each person. Right? I'll take the example because I have not designed any multi-storied buildings, but Vinu, whom I was talking about, is designing some multi-storied building in mud in Ahmedabad. Possible. So you question. That's what I said, no, you question. You'll find your answers. And it might be different from each one of us. That's what the beauty of architecture is. Every architect will solve it in a different way.
One brief, different designs.
Yeah, study for students, study for different designs.
One more question.
Yeah, so like when you have projects like managing like the on-site work or like the construction part of it, so how do you deal with like clients who require you to come and overlook the projects in more detail? How do you go about that, and what would you advise our students?
Okay, again the answer is building the structure. How do you know what's happening in every site? Say for example, I think my office is working on around 40 projects or less. Right? So how is that I get to know what's happening in all the 40 projects without me being involved directly in it? So there's a process, there's a structure, there's a pattern in which I get to know what's happening in each project. So you build that process. Nothing will work if you don't have structure in the projects, in the way you work. Even if you want to, say for example, if I want to reduce weight to, let's say I'm 100 now and I want to become 70, I can't become 70 tomorrow. So you build that structure, you build that discipline and then work on that, and then you know that you're achieving something. Similar to a building project. So what needs to be done at the end, and how do you break it down, and
A gradual process.
gradual process. But structure and process, which will guide the whole thing. So, for example, my contractors, we have got WhatsApp groups. Where the contractors put up photographs on a daily basis. The client is there, I am there, the architects who are working on that project are there, the contractor is there. So we all know what's happening. So if somebody from my office has gone to the site, the report is put on the site, so I know what's happening. There are measurables which I see on my computer. So that's the logic of working on an office. Is that a right brain or left brain? Right brain, no?
But structure is more left brain.
Left brain, no? I don't know. None of the brains. So you need to be both.
Yeah.
You need to know what to measure, what not to measure.
Is form or function?
Form is theatre. Function is the dialogues.
Concept development or project execution?
I'm concept.
Brainstorming meetings or site visits, which excites you more?
Brainstorming.
And fast-paced projects or longer, detailed projects?
Most of my projects are long. Yeah, but they're within the time bound, but yeah, long projects.
Focused design time or spontaneous thinking concepts?
Spontaneous.
On-site supervision or office-based work?
On-site.
Handcrafted details or modern?
Hand-cranted details.
Green roofs or solar panels?
Green roofs. Solar panels are a hoax.
Indoor skylights or outdoor pergolas?
Indoor skylights.
Experimenting with new materials or sticking to the trusted ones?
New materials.